undergraduates. I wish you a happy, rainy, floody centennial graduation. This is one of the first among three or four, that we will be having this year as our centennial graduations. So you are the first one. Just exactly what are we celebrating this centennial year? We have just about 100 years of Lasallian presence in the Philippines. And what we will be doing during this year will be to celebrate everything that is good about our past, to remember the memories, the inspirations, and the mission fulfilled or being fulfilled up to this year. As we reflect on this particular celebration, and as we look into the future, let me just reflect with you just exactly what is this particular legacy that we are trying to continue from the past. You know, at the start of every school year, and this year, I was able to meet with a freshman. And during that meeting with the freshmen, I told them I will probably get to see you only twice during your college life. During your orientation time, and probably just about at the end of your college life during your graduation. And I said, just exactly what is it that I want to give as a message to you, freshmen? I said, and I told this to them, I have only one wish for you, and that is, I want to make a success out of every freshman this year. I want to make a success out of every freshman this year. I did not define, though, what that success means. And so, now that you are graduating, I thought that probably I could explain before you leave your alma mater what that success means. I did not have you 4 years ago. I'm sure Brother Armin must have given you some message when he got to meet you when you were first year. But I thought that probably I might just reflect with you what I would have told you had I met you 4 years ago. What is our common understanding of what success is all about? To be financially loaded, to be famous, to have a lot of prestige, to have a lot of power. Is that what success means? I'd like to maybe just tell you a little bit more about it, and probably my little understanding of what I think success means. And so that you can easily remember these, I'd like to talk about just 5 things. But very short, don't worry, this is not going to be very long. Just 5. I thought that as a Lasallian graduates from our school, from our university, I'd like to be able to see 5 elements or 5 traits. The first one is a real, honest-to-goodness competence. A real, honest-to-goodness competence. I'd like to tell you a little story here. Some years ago, many years ago, I had a chance, together with some friends, to be able to go to Pangasinan. I come from Pangasinan, no? And we visited a place called Bunuan in Dagupan. They have the best bangus in the country. And during that trip, we were traveling in a car. We went to the beachfront. And as we were getting there, we were kind of excited. The driver sort of overstepped into getting into the a little closer to the beach. And it was summer, and the sun was rather dry, very dry in fact, very hot. And the vehicle that we were on was was running, and then all of a sudden, it got stuck in the sand. And so it was, the wheels were turning, and it just wasn't moving. And the more the driver was turning the wheels, the more it got stuck into the sand. Anyway, to make a long story short, we were there for a few minutes, and we didn't know what to do. So we looked around, and we checked, if there's anyone that could help us. And sure enough, there was somebody right there. And he asked us, what's the problem? He says, well, we couldn't get through, we couldn't move, we're stuck here, he says. And so he says, well, let me take a look. And so he went over to the side, he got a bucket of water, and he went back to the vehicle, and he poured water just about where the wheels were. And so he says, well, okay, get it started. Okay, and so the driver got it started, and sure enough, the vehicle went through rather easily. Oh, very good, we said. Okay, thank you very much. And so he said, no. Yes. And so he said, may bayad po yan. May bayad ba yan? Okay. So he said, magkano? 500 piso po yan. Good. Itemization, no? Could you give us an itemization? Bigyan niyo po kami ng receipt itemization kung magkano yung 500. And so he said, well, okay. He says, my bucket of water, the use of my bucket of water, I will charge you 10 pesos, he says. And he says, knowing exactly where to pour that bucket of water, 490 pesos. He says, that's competence. And you pay for competence. Okay? I suppose that's what you have been trying to gain over these past few years. You want to be a very competent engineer, a very competent scientist, a very competent teacher, a competent whatever. That's what you had wanted to to be. Second trait. I suppose this is a trait that is special, and this is one on honesty and integrity. I like to tell this story because I think it says a lot. You may have heard of this story maybe a long, long time ago because it's been quite publicized in the papers. There was that case, the instance of a balikbayan who was coming back to the Philippines, and apparently he left a wad of dollars inside the taxi cab that he was taking. And he left, and the wad of dollars was left there. And so the taxi driver, found this wad of money, found at the back of the taxi cab. He looked at it and he says, without batting an eyelash, he says, he brought it to the nearest radio station. He says, well, I found this money in my taxi cab and I am returning this money. So he went home. And as he went home, the people around the neighborhood came to him. They heard about what he had found in the taxi cab. And they were chiding him. They were telling him, what a fool you are. Pera na naging bato pa. Bakit mo isinauli? And you know what his answer was? Hindi ho sa akin yung pera. Isinauli ko kasi hindi ho sa akin. And this guy was probably just went through up to grade 6. He probably just graduated in grade 6. He did not go to high school, and neither did he go to college. A very high standard of honesty and integrity. I am sure you're probably reflecting on yourselves whether that is the kind of attitude that you probably also have. I am sure during your 4 years or 5 years of college life, you would have had opportunities where your honesty, where your integrity would have been tested. Cheating in exams, quizzes, copying work of others, plagiarism. These are probably some examples you can reflect on. How have you passed the test of integrity and honesty? Maybe this is something that you might have to reflect on later on, because as you practice the minutiae of honesty and integrity, it has a way of coming back to you later on in life. Third, excellence. I always think that the trait of excellence could very well be referred to as an attitude that we have. Many people say that the reason why we do not progress in life, the reason why we do not progress in work, is because of our attitude that ranks below excellence. We're satisfied with doing just what is simply enough. Tama na yan. Pasado ka na. Okay na yan. Isn't that sometimes our attitude of mediocrity? Isn't that sometimes what engulfs us in the way we run our lives? We're satisfied with doing what is enough. We're also satisfied with competing with one another. and say, I'm slightly a little better than you. Okay na yan? Pwede na. Our benchmark is our neighbor. Our benchmark is the one sitting beside me. We never use as our benchmark for excellence ourselves. I can do this, I'd like to do this. I can do this, I'd like to do this. I'd like to do even more. The possibilities are limitless. But it's a possibility that is not bill-driven. It's a possibility that is will-driven, coupled by the heart and the mind. I think that is probably the kind of attitude that we should be having. And you started off here in college as you leave and as you leave your college life. The next one is that of dedication. And I'd like to use this word dedication as one that is very similar to what De La Salle calls zeal, and more popularly what we would call passion. There must be some exemplars that you see among yourselves, even among yourselves, among your teachers, among your parents, your relatives, among your friends, where you see a lot of zeal, a lot of passion, a lot of dedication. These are the people who are not the 8 to 5 people. These are the people who work towards a goal and they pursue that goal without thinking of the cost. These are the people who work 25 hours a day. Not because they want or not because they are forced to work, but because there is a goal stirringly shining out there and I want to pursue that goal. They don't think of the time. They don't think of just exactly the parameters of, where they are going, what are the dangers, what are the limits. It's almost like without rules. I suppose you can relate that to people that you love. If you love someone very much, all rules break apart. There are no rules. Right? Isn't it? Because your main consideration is, I love you, I care for you, and that's all. That's all that matters. There are no guidelines. That's the only guideline. There are people who are like that. There are people who are very passionate about their work. There are people who are very passionate about their mission. There are people who are very passionate about their goals, and they pursue those goals, come what may. And the final one is that of service and social responsibility. We measure learning not so much with what we accumulate. You can get all the medals, you can get all the awards, you can get all the ribbons, but those ribbons don't mean anything. Those medals don't mean anything. They just tell us that you have skills. They just tell us that there's a group that says, congratulations, you've been able to acquire certain information, and those information you've been able to give back to your teacher, and the teacher says, excellent. You get a grade of A, 4.0. That's all. What is important, however, it is not so much seen in the accumulation of the information, the accumulation of skills, but using what you have learned so that you can use this for the community, for society, for the nation, for others. The other day, you saw in the papers, or yesterday, you saw in the papers just about, 10 or so, 15 billionaires in the Philippines. You want to be a billionaire? Yes? Of course, no one wants to be destitute. No one wants to be in want. No one wants to be destitute. And there's nothing wrong with money. It's what you do with it that determines the good or the evil that is inherent in it. You keep it, it rots. You share it, it grows. Share your time, share your talent, and your treasure. Don't keep it to yourself or your family only. The world is a lot bigger than yourself and your family. That's what success is. I have presented for you 5 traits of the individual whom I think is successful. Competent, honesty, competence, honesty, excellence, dedication, and service. And in talking about success, did I talk a lot about money? Did I talk about fame? Did I talk about prestige? Did I talk about power? No. I talked about hard work, about doing nothing less than excellent, about integrity, about honesty, about being passionate, about giving, about being socially responsible, about sharing, about caring, about loving. That is success. When you do these things, you acquire more than money. Your human capital improves 100%. You become famous because people will talk about you, your person, your work, your mission. And sometimes people will talk against you. And you become powerful because by your work, by your person, you are sharing in God's work of changing, transforming, recreating the world that we live in. Isn't that wonderful? We measure the kind of university we have by the kinds of successes we produce. Excellence at the service of God and country. On our 100th year, although we have brought, as you very well know, the relics, the remains of the 300-year-old dead body of St. John Baptist de la Salle, the animal, the spirit, has continued to live on in the hearts and minds and souls of every successful graduate here present. Because you have brought to life His Spirit. You are De La Salle today. Carry Him for the next 100 more years. To Jesus in our hearts.